If you're planning a trip to Singapore, there are three critical things that you need to take care of right after landing. I'll share everything about that in this video, but first let's start with the pre-departure checklist starting from visa. YouTube analytics tells me that most of you are from India and Indians do need a visa to travel to Singapore, but the good news is it's not very difficult to obtain. Also, these days Singapore is giving a 3-year multiple entry visa, so if you want to apply for it, now is the best time. That's taken care of. Let's talk about the next point, which is the power. Singapore uses same power adapter as UK, which is type G, and in India we have a different power adapter, so make sure you are traveling with a travel adapter. If you want some recommendation, I'll leave some links down in the below so you can order it from Amazon. Now the last point in our pre-departure checklist is emergency cash. The good news is everywhere you go in Singapore, all the cards are very easily accepted, whether it's Visa, MasterCard or Amex. But if your bank card charges a lot of forex markup charges, I recommend you take some extra cash and exchange it at airport to be used during your trip journey. Now as I mentioned, everywhere in Singapore, all the international cards are widely accepted, but if you want to do some street shopping, the street vendor usually charge 3 to 5% extra on top of your total bill value. Now that's something if you would like to avoid, you can also use cash for that transactions. Now, I highly recommend that you change your local currency to Singapore dollars or US dollars because that's what will get you the best exchange rate as you land in Singapore. Now, here comes the most critical part, that is filling the Singapore visitor pass. After COVID, Singapore has made mandatory for all the travelers to fill in the visitor pass, and in this visitor pass you have to put in your date of arrival, the hotel that you are staying at, and your date of exit, and you also have to do a self-declaration that you are not suffering from fever, cough and cold. Now you can fill this visitor pass right after you land at the airport on your phone using the airport's fast Wi-Fi, but to save some time at immigration, I highly recommend that you pre-fill the pass before boarding the plane. I will leave the link in the description where you can find the Singapore Visitor Pass so you can fill it before you fly, and make sure you check every detail twice because it will save you a lot of time during immigration. Now let's talk about things that you need to take care of right after landing. So when you are coming to Singapore, you will be landing at Changi Airport, which is of course the greatest airport in the world. Now it has few terminals, but you don't have to worry because all these terminals are connected via monorail, bus, which is free of cost, and all sort of things. You can also walk from one terminal to another, so you don't have to really worry about in which terminal you are landing. But the first order of business after your landing is to pass through the immigration check. Now for a lot of countries including India, Singapore has implemented a self-immigration kiosk. That means you just have to walk to the immigration kiosk, scan your passport, scan your face, and you should be good to go. Now if you are someone like me who got stuck at the self-immigration kiosk, it's usually because of an error you made while filling the Singapore visitor pass. In that case, you might have to ask for help from the people at airport, but usually there is a counter right at the self check-in kiosk where you can walk in and tell them that I made an error on my visitor pass, and they will check the criticality of error and make you fill the form again or let you through the manual door after checking your passport and take your photo. Now it is worth mentioning that during the immigration they might do a thermal scan to make sure that you are not suffering from fever, cough or cold, but that's not something you need to highly worry about. Now after the immigration is done, you can move to the baggage claim counter, but while moving to the baggage claim counter, you can see a lot of places where you can do foreign exchange and SIM right after the immigration. However, I would highly recommend you skip these counters and do that after you exit the airport, because in my observation you will find a little better rate over there. Now once you have retrieved your baggage from the baggage claim conveyor belt, the next step is to move out of the airport and pass through the customs channel. Now depending on if you don't have anything to declare, you should be moving through the green channel of customs. However, keep in mind that they can randomly stop you and check your bag to make sure that you're not carrying anything which is not allowed. Now as soon as you move out of the air side of the airport, the next order of business is to take care of your foreign exchange and SIM card. Now there are a lot of currency exchange counters that you will find there, and almost each one of has the similar rate of change, which is slightly higher than what you will find in the city. But if you are in the hurry, I would recommend that you change your foreign currency here. As I mentioned before, US dollars will fetch you the best exchange rate, but if you are carrying Singapore dollars from your country, you don't have to do any foreign exchange, and then you can move to the SIM counter. Now before you move to the SIM counter and buy the SIM with maximum data rate available, let me tell you that everywhere in Singapore it's very easy to get Wi-Fi, even in small cafes, public transport and malls. So you don't have to buy the unlimited data pack, but save some money to buy a lower pack. Usually you will find a SIM from Sigtel. Now in my experience after taking multiple trips to Singapore, I have observed that if you go to a nearby 7-Eleven store, which by the way you can also find at the airport, you could buy a much cheaper data plans. Now I generally travel with eSIM which I buy online, and it costed me 11 Singaporean dollars for 3 GB of data, which was sufficient for 1 week of trip. As I mentioned, it's Wi-Fi everywhere. If you like this plan and your phone also supports eSIM, I'll leave a link down to an application down below from which you can buy an eSIM for Singapore, and you don't have to buy a physical SIM at the airport. Now after taking care of all this thing, you have to make the most critical decision, which is whether to go to the hotel straight from airport or first explore the Singapore airport. Now let me tell you, Singapore airport has been the world #1 airport for so many years, and there's a great reason for it. On Singapore airport, you will also find a mall which is called Changi Jewel, and over there you will find this beautiful Rain Vortex, which is the biggest waterfall at an indoor location. So a lot of people prefer to check it out before going to the hotel, which I also recommend, especially if it's your first time at Singapore. It's a must watch. But depending on where you are coming from Singapore, and if you had a really tiring flight, you might prefer going to the hotel first. So now let me explain how you can better manage this decision. Let's talk about the people who first want to explore Singapore airport and want to check Changi Jewel. For those people, the first thing that you have to do is figure out the way to reach Changi Jewel, and airport has marking everywhere. And I'd also like to mention that at Changi Airport, you will find information desk and self-help kiosk almost at every step at the airport. So you can go to any of this counter and ask for the way to Changi Jewel. Now the one thing to keep in mind is Changi Jewel is a full-fledged mall where you can eat, you can have a coffee, you can do a lot of activities, you can take a lot of photos. So it might not be the best decision to take all your bags with you. That is why there are facilities where you can store your bag depending on the bag size and the time, and Changi Jewel also have this facility. But in my experience, if you take your bag to Changi Jewel and opt for the baggage storage solution, there is always a very big line of people. So what I would recommend is to find a baggage storage facility at the terminal itself. So in my recent trip, I landed to Terminal 3, and right after the immigration exit, you will find the baggage storage facility, and they charge for $16 for the big bag and $11 for the smaller bag for almost 6 hours, which was great. And in that time we were free to explore Changi Jewel without worrying about our baggage, safety, and also the logistic of carrying it everywhere. Now if you think these are at the higher price and you don't want to spend a lot of time at Jewel, you can take your baggage with you, but just make sure it's not the perfect solution to carry your baggage and explore a mall at the same time. Now depending on which terminal you are, there could be a different way to reach Changi Jewel. It could be a monorail which connects Terminal 2 to Terminal 3, or it could be an indoor walking bridge that you have to take to reach Changi Jewel. Now once you reach Changi Jewel, you can shop, you can eat, you can have coffee, you can indulge in a lot of activities, but make sure to take a lot of photos in front of this Rain Vortex because that's the biggest attraction there. Now let's talk about how to reach to your hotel from airport. Now keep in mind, you can always come back at any day during your trip to Singapore, or even when you are leaving Singapore, you can come 5 to 6 hours before and enjoy Changi Jewel, so you don't miss it out, because I highly recommend you check it out. But for people who have enjoyed Changi Jewel, or for people who just want to go straight to the hotel, there are a couple of options available at Changi Airport. You can take the bus to the city, you can take metro rail, which is known as MRT, and you can obviously also take taxi. Now keep in mind the taxi prices are really high, so I highly recommend that you take MRT, which is very well connected and which will take you a city in the fastest available time possible, and it's all air conditioned, so that's what I highly recommend in the humid weather of Singapore. Now to find your way to the Changi Airport MRT station, which is very well connected right inside the airport, you can ask anyone from the information desk or self-help kiosk. But usually after you exit the immigration counter, you just have to go one level down, and that is where the MRT from Changi take you to the downtown area. Now one thing that you really need to keep in mind is there is no one-time use ticket for MRT. That means you cannot buy one ticket from Changi Airport to the location to your hotel. But what you could do is use any debit card or any credit card and just tap it when you are entering the metro rail station. Now MRT is also the best way to explore Singapore. It's very well connected and it's the best mode of transportation there in my opinion. So for the first timers, I highly recommend that you take Singapore Tourist Pass, which costs around $30 plus $10 refundable Singaporean, and you can get this card right at MRT station of Changi Airport. You will find a machine that disposes of this card. You can pay using your debit card or credit card. Make sure you take that if you're planning to explore Singapore using MRT. Now let me give you some tips that will make your trip even more smooth and also save you some bucks here and there. So as I mentioned before, the information kiosks are available everywhere at the airport, and these kiosks also have an option to book free trips to the city. So make sure you ask them what timings they are leaving for, because usually whatever the attraction is available in the city, whether it's Merlion Park and Gardens by the Bay, for people who are just traveling to Singapore on a very short trip, the airport authority has arranged some trips that you can join and maybe save some money while going there. To navigate to Singapore, you can use Google Maps, and as I mentioned, MRT is the best way to navigate to the city, and in the Google Map itself you can find an option to MRT. But if MRT station is not very close to your hotel location, you can also consider buses, and as I mentioned before, the tourist pass that you bought is also valid for the buses along with the MRT, and it's unlimited for the number of days you bought it for. So make sure whenever you are navigating in the city, you check for both MRT as well as the bus route, because usually bus routes are more comfortable and more easier to navigate in the city compared to MRT. Now lastly, I would like to mention that Singapore is a highly walkable city, so you can walk pretty much everywhere. Especially if you are traveling with infants, you can use baby strollers. And of course, on every MRT station there are escalators and there are elevators, though they can go as deep as level -6 and -8. So if you have luggage with you while traveling to MRT, just use the lift available at the station exit itself instead of going to elevators, because then you have to climb to 6 or 8 different levels. So that was all the thing that I wanted to share with you to make your trip a little bit smoother, and make sure to do all the critical things on the very first hour as you land at the Singapore. I also recently posted a full vlog of my Singapore recent trip, so make sure you check it out. And if this video helped you in any way, do consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like to this video. On that note, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.